Hey dude, where's the best surfing in the world? That's right mate, Australia. And you have 3 different ways to win the ultimate surfing safari to Australia for 14 outrageous days of surfing, all expenses paid. Just call 1-900-4-HOT-WAVE and using your touch-tone phone select one of the following 3 ways to receive an entry into the grand prize drawing. You can answer questions about the hot ESPN Surfer Magazine show, or you can answer questions about the covers of these great Surfer Magazine videos from Rhino Home Video. You can also choose to answer a question about this video and earn another entry into our grand prize drawing, the trip for 2 to Australia for 14 days. Is that all you ask? Certainly not. Because if you answer these simple questions, you'll have a chance to win one of the following cool instant prizes: Rusty surfboards, O'Neill wetsuits, Gotcha and offshore clothing, all-time great surfer music provided by Rhino Records, and copies of Rhino's Surfer Magazine videos. Just call 1-900-4-HOT-WAVE, follow the easy instructions, and you and your friend could be on your way to Australia for 14 days of the hottest, coolest, most outrageous surfing safari you could ever dream of. Look at those waves. They could be yours for a phone call. Dial 1-900-4-HOT-WAVE. Only $2 for the first minute and $1.50 for each additional minute. If you're under 18, you must have your parents' permission to call. The tubes, the waves, the best in the world. Call 1-900-4-HOT-WAVE, or here's how to enter with no purchase or phone call necessary. Send a self-addressed stamped envelope to Surfer Magazine, Surf to Australia Sweepstakes, Post Office Box 76688, Los Angeles, California, 90076 0688. Contest ends December 31, 1990. Entries must be received by January 7, 1991. Grand prize drawing will take place on January the 10th. Watch this hot video and call 1-900-4-HOT-WAVE and enter the Surfer Magazine Surf to Australia Sweepstakes. All of Australia is waiting for you to ride that ultimate wave.
This is the North Shore of Oahu, and for the surfer, the ultimate test of skill happens right here every winter. That's when huge ocean swells come out of the deep water here and slam into shallow reefs just offshore. The energy that comes down here every winter is incredible, as surfers gather from all over the globe to see what they've got, and to prove to themselves and to others just how good they really are. The North Shore is truly a surfer's Mount Everest. On this special Hawaiian winter issue, we're going to take a look at the adrenaline-charged North Shore scene. First up, we'll meet young Hawaiian Sonny Garcia, an angry young man who is taking the ASP Tour by storm. Then it's time for some pure fun as the bodyboarders cut loose in the big stuff. On our movie review, we'll check out Billabong's Surf into Summer video with its great North Shore action. And on our surf report, we're going to show you that there's a lot more to the North Shore than Sunset, Waimea, and Pipeline. And of course, there's always our look at the lighter side from Corky's Corner. Don't go away, our Hawaiian winter begins after this. Sonny Garcia is an 18-year-old Hawaiian who has emerged as surfing's angry young man, a powerful, flowing, radical surfer on a mission to become Hawaii's first professional world champion. Sonny describes himself as dissatisfied and displeased, despite the fact that in just 2 years on the ASP circuit, he's climbed from nowhere to number 17 on the world ratings. Sonny Garcia first demanded the surfing world's undivided attention during last year's OP Pro at Huntington Beach, where he held Barton Lynch to a best-of-3 showdown in the finals. The more experienced Australian eventually beat Garcia, but it was no walkover. The Hawaiian had put the top pros on notice that he was going to be a major threat with his tough street punk attitude and explosive, radical performances. And make no mistake, the Hawaiians are looking to Garcia to fulfill a very special dream.
It's basically what we want to do. We want to come out and we want to be champions. We want to bring, a world championship back here to Hawaii.
Although Garcia is still a rookie on the Pro Tour, he has plenty of support from his more experienced brothers.
I find Mike and Hans, Derek, I'll kind of screw up in the heat, and I didn't really think they'd be watching, and I come back and I'll see them and they'll fully hassle me about it, because they'll always be watching the heat, and they're always down there watching me, telling me what to do.
Sonny Garcia has been described as a young Cassius Clay of surfing, and the similarities are obvious both in his looks and his temperament. Dangerous, ambitious, and totally unfazed by reputations, Sonny Garcia is one competitor who is making all the top-ranked pros extremely nervous. In fact, Sonny started out the 1988 ASP season by beating world champion Damien Hardman in the very first event of the year. Sonny's intensity both on land and in the water has most observers saying that he'll either win the title or burn out before his time. So far, though, Garcia remains right on track and clearly focused on his goal.
I wouldn't mind being the world champ, but I'll do whatever it takes to get there. And if I don't get there, I hope somebody else from Hawaii does.
Sonny Garcia, a young Hawaiian moving up. There are all kinds of ways to ride waves. Over the years, people have enjoyed the ultimate free ride on surfboards, in canoes, with nothing but a pair of trunks and fins, and even on wave-riding catamarans. But no form of surfing has taken off as quickly and in such great numbers as bodyboarding. Since the early 80s, hundreds of thousands of these soft foam boards have found their way into the lineup as more and more people discovered that bodyboarding is the quickest and easiest way to tune into surfing's pure fun high. At its most simple level, bodyboarding might look like kids' stuff, and certainly it's a great way for kids to get acquainted with the world of waves. But in its most sophisticated form, bodyboarding is emerging as a pro sport where expert riders perform outrageous maneuvers on Hawaii's most powerful waves. These guys ride finely tuned bodyboards that are hand-shaped and fitted with slick, high-tech bottom coatings to give them extra speed and quick release in critical situations. Bodyboarding, just another way to enjoy the amazing sport of surfing. Now let's go to the screen room with Surfer's editor-in-chief, Paul Holmes.
In this modern age of surfing, the promotional video is becoming increasingly important as a vehicle for exposing the high-performance wave riding of sponsored team riders. Some of these videos are little more than tape loops or short clips you might run into at the surf shop. But others are full-blown productions that are genuine surf movies in their own right. Billabong's hour-long video release, Surf into Summer, is a fine example of the real creative effort going into promotional tapes from the surf industry, and it's just one that we'll be reviewing in this series. Much of the footage in Surf into Summer comes from North Shore sessions with the Billabong surf team, and from the epic contest the company has sponsored for the past 3 years. In fact, the segment on the 86 Billabong Pro held at Waimea Bay contains what may well be the biggest and most spectacular surf ever to be captured on film. There's a lot more than Hawaiian big surf in this video, including some great Australian free surfing with rising stars down under.
At a club contest in 1985 in good surf at Curren, 14-year-old Jason Buttonshaw surfed a final heat against Rabbit Bartholomew, Tom Carroll, and Martin Potter, and walked away with first place. That was 2 years ago, and young Butto has done nothing but get better since. On raw talent alone, he's mind-blowing, but it goes beyond that. Watch closely and just dig this kid's subtlety and style. In tight situations where most grommets stiffen up and hope for the best, Jason will relax, make little adjustments, finish the move, and maybe throw in some hand jive for good measure. I got one thing, and I like to glory there.
In California, we're treated to an explosive display from Bud Lamas at Huntington Beach, and throughout the tape the action is moved along with raw rock and roll from bands like TSOL and Agent Orange. But while the hot dog surfing in this tape is good, I just can't get over the sheer immensity of the Waimea Bay material. Also, insightful commentary helps build the feeling of drama and tension.
Sometimes, on a sunny afternoon near the end of a clean 15-foot swell, Waimea comes off as a fair challenge. Good for a bracing shot of adrenaline, almost fun. Then again, on a drizzly morning with the slight onshore wind blowing across a brand new 30-foot death swell, Waimea comes off like some kind of insane beast. This is it. Welcome to your nightmare.
I mean, check this out. Is this the biggest surf you've ever seen or what? For my money, this stuff alone makes Billabong's Surf into Summer a genuine collector's item. Hot stuff. Making surf movies is becoming an increasingly expensive business, so it's a good job there are companies like this who are willing to back the filmmakers in putting together these kinds of shows. Otherwise, there'd be a lot less action surf footage being released each year. In this green room, I'm Paul Holmes.
And now, some more off-the-wall comments from Corky's Corner.
Around the world, there's some beautiful and intriguing names for surf spots. Malibu, Windansea, Rincon, Hawiian, Corkyland, etc. Then there's a lot of real obvious names like 1st Street, 3rd Street, 13th Street, T Street, Redondo Breakwater, Huntington Pier, Cardiff Reef, Sebastian Inlet, and zillions of others. But there's some real interesting stories about how a lot of popular spots got their names. Take, for instance, Waimea Bay. There was once this tourist from Rome, and he rented one of those big pink rental boards in Waikiki and went driving around the island, checking out the sights. He came to this beautiful bay with these monster waves rolling in. He figured, hey, I'll just go out surfing. So he paddles out and this monster set comes in. And just as he's getting ready to get totally cleaned up, he looks up and yells, Waimea! And that's how Waimea Bay really got its name. Then over on the west side of Oahu, there's the town of Waianae. And it turns out the first white haole surfer that ever went out there made the mistake of dropping in on a local. So what happened? He got punched in the eye. He goes, Waianae! So they named the town Waianae. And a group of locals were sitting there watching this, and they all went, Makaha! So they named the point break Makaha. Then they made the guy surf the little shore break down the way, and from then on they called that Pokai Bay, because that's where you always had to surf if you dropped in, hit the eye and stuff like that. On the East Coast, there was once this guy who had a really irritating girlfriend. She used to moan and whine and make life miserable every time he went surfing. Then one day he got fed up with the whole thing, twisted her head right off and tossed it in the shore break. From then on, the place has been called Nag's Head. But the one nobody's been able to figure out is how in the heck did any place ever get named Oxnard?
More hot action after this.
You just really have to push yourself and become accustomed to big waves, because if you don't push yourself, you're going to get psyched out to a certain extent, and you'll never be successful in surf that's big.
You have to think positive the whole time and be confident you're going to make it. Or if you don't have the confidence and you don't think you're halfway in between, you shouldn't be out there. You shouldn't be taking off in that wave.
What's really going through my mind when I'm out at Waimea or Sunset is just to, surf aggressively and try to control the situation competitively.
My adrenaline was pumping so fast, and I didn't get through that heat of mine, but I learned a lot about surfing big waves.
There's big waves and then there's big waves. And I mean, the Billabong was just outrageous. I'd never surfed anything like that before in my life. And here I was, I had to go and paddle out and surf it in a contest, and it's just, it's some kind of pressure you don't need in big waves, You try and sort of want to be really relaxed.
When you're out in waves like that, anything can happen, You can make if your timing's wrong or anything's wrong and you haven't got that much experience that you do need, in big waves like that you can die. So you've got that element always sort of in the back of your mind that you want to make the right moves at the right time.
One thing that was in my mind was survival. As long as I lived and I got a few good waves, I was happy. And you know what to expect, and you know you're fit enough to survive a wipeout if you fall off on a 15-foot wave. So it becomes something where you just want to go out there and tear it to pieces. You don't want to be scared of it.
Along this 7-mile stretch of coastline that makes up the North Shore, you can find over 10 of the best waves in the world. Famous waves like Hawiian, Waimea, Pipeline, Rocky Point, and Sunset Beach. This place is a living, breathing museum of big wave riding, where today's surfer can still come and experience an ancient thrill. Well, on this Surf Report, we're going to take a look at the waves of the North Shore, the waves that year after year are guaranteed to leave you breathless. In fact, there are more than 40 surf spots along the 8-mile stretch of coast that makes up the North Shore. And those 40 are only the spots that have names. In addition, there's a couple dozen misto reefs and cloud breaks that can be seen only under gargantuan swell conditions. Of course, the North Shore is most famous for its big wave breaks, places like the Bonsai Pipeline, Sunset Beach, and Waimea Bay, where waves anywhere from 15 to 30 feet are not uncommon. But the awesome power and the challenge of riding these big waves is just one of the reasons why the North Shore is the surfing mecca of the world. Because on days when the swell isn't big enough to make these famous spots turn on, there's still classic small surf to be found at spots most people haven't even heard of. While spots like Sunset and Waimea will always remain the star attraction, some of these other spots like Rocky Point, Laniakea, and Camiland are almost as famous as the big wave breaks. But there are heaps more, like Piddly's, Marijuana's, and 17th Hole, where the waves can be just as good when conditions are right. Cross the bridge and turn left and you find a classic case in point. Haleiwa, located next to the boat harbor, is right in the heart of the main North Shore town, and not surprisingly, it's where most of the young locals learn to surf on the smaller inside waves. From there, it's just a short paddle into the fun hot dog surf that peels off just a little further outside. A perfect place to graduate slowly into big-time North Shore power. Haleiwa is like a microcosm of the North Shore in itself and gets up to 15 feet on good west swells. It's an ideal training ground for the big-name breaks. On the other side of the famous lefts of the pipeline are two more heavily surfed small wave spots. Backdoor and Off the Wall are world-renowned for peeling, hollow, wide-open tubes that make these spots some of the most photographed on Earth. In fact, so much film has been shot here that Off the Wall is often referred to as Kodak Reef. Sean Thompson claimed Off the Wall as his personal tube riding domain back in the mid-70s, and more than 10 years later, he still does it as good as anyone. Unbelievable tube rides like this one by Tom Curren, it's a safe bet that Backdoor and Off the Wall will remain North Shore favorites among surfers and photographers alike. As Hawaii moves into the future, it finds itself still standing in the center stage. What were once Hawaii's hot young kids are now seasoned competitors and are eagerly making their presence internationally known. And the prestige of being a great North Shore surfer has never been a higher honor. It's an honor that has been passed down from generation to generation since the birth of modern surfing. A tradition that will always involve the dignity of Hawaii's past with the progression of her future. Next week, we're off for paradise in the South Pacific. I'm Matt George, and from all of us here at Surfer Magazine, we'll see you in the water.
It's almost impossible to be a surfer and not be fascinated by the Hawaiian Islands. Everything about these lush, volcanic outcrops in the mid-Pacific adds to the surfing experience. According to Hawaiian tradition, Oahu was a gathering place, and its consistency of surf made it the place to be for most surfers. But the outer islands offers a different kind of experience. A place where the waves may not be as powerful, but the landscape, ocean, and weather add up to form and intensity all their own. I'm Sonny Miller, and this is Surfer Magazine. On this special Outer Islands issue of Surfer Magazine, we're gone to Maui. On our profile, we're hooking up with Laird Hamilton as he makes full use of Outer Islands wind and waves. For pure fun, we haven't gone soft, but we're lightening up a little with some state-of-the-art bodyboarding. While on the movie review, we're looking back to our roots with a filmmaker who was a surf media pioneer. And on our surf report, we're all over the island of Maui, chasing the summer surf. And Corky's back and right in the spirit of things, as he worries about the tropical hazards of surfing. Don't go away, our Outer Island adventure will be right back after this. When it comes to the active water sports lifestyle, Maui is hard to beat. And that's why this is home for 25-year-old Laird Hamilton. Although Laird's powerful surfing could easily bring him a professional career in the sport, and he's already had a number of offers for modeling in movies in Hollywood, Laird has remained true to his roots, and he stays home to enjoy this paradise playground of surfing and sailboarding.
Being a surfer is a definite big advantage in sailing the waves. Combination of wave judgment, timing, just bottom turning, all the stuff that goes with surfing. It's definitely an advantage. Most of the best, in fact, all of the best wave sailors are surfers also, the top ones. It's not the case with slalom and the other disciplines in windsurfing, but all the top wave sailors are surfers and very good ones, actually. You can catch a groundswell so early that you can ride pretty much any type of wave as long as there's wind. You can catch a wave so early and get into it so early that it enables you to ride something bigger than possibly ever ridden, which is one thing that I'm definitely looking at in the future for doing with sailing, is that you can catch them early and ride these big cloud breaks that normally you wouldn't surf because you can't paddle out there, you couldn't paddle into the wave. There's all these factors that are eliminated by having this sail and having this wind power. People ask me all the time, do you prefer windsurfing or surfing? And I have to say it's dead even. Sailing, I think, has helped my surfing immensely, because normally you go out surfing and you catch a wave and you ride it for so many seconds and you kick out and you paddle and you sit and you wait. And you only have a couple minutes per session or you know, a limited time of actually standing up in the standing up position, riding your board. Where sailing, from the second you leave the beach, you're in the standing up position. And you ride these waves and you kick out and you're always riding around in the standing up position. So you build strength and you learn some other things that you can adapt to surfing.
In terms of adapting and progressing in the surfing life, Laird has had the best coaching anyone could hope for. After all, his father is Billy Hamilton, widely regarded as one of surfing's all-time greats and a major surf star of the 60s when Laird was growing up.
I have to say that I've been also blessed in the father and son relationship. My father was my biggest hero when I was young. I looked up at him and he was, you know, we were living on the North Shore, and for me he was the best surfer ever, you know, and I used to just sit there and watch him at every contest. And so it was really a relationship of admiration. You know, I really admired him, to be able to have someone that you love their surfing and their everything, and then come home and that was your dad. Together we do things and surf together, and the fact that, you know, I was already 15 when he was, you know, 40, it just made it so that we could surf together and do things a lot soon, you know, and really at a higher level of it. It wasn't like I had to wait for Dad. It was like I had to try to catch up with Dad.
Laird Hamilton, on the cutting edge of two sports in paradise. Hey, let's pull into the screen room with our own editor-in-chief, Paul Holmes.
30 years ago, around the end of 1959, A Californian artist and surf movie maker named John Severson had the idea of producing a program, a small booklet of surf photos and stories to promote his latest movie. Well, the response was so overwhelming that that program soon became the world's first surf publication. Its name, Surfer Magazine. Although John Severson today is far removed from being a surf media mogul, he's still very close to the surfing lifestyle. But in the 50s and 60s, Severson's surf movies, paintings, and magazine virtually defined what surfing was all about.
The surfers, they really don't care, as long as there are waves breaking. Our film deals with the surfers' efforts to use the power of the sea and conquer the angry elements. His successes and his failures.
The guy next door had a camera shop. He said, hey, you got to try this. Look at this thing. It was a Keystone 16mm camera. I said, oh, no, $50. That was a whole week's pay, probably, but he swore I would fall in love with it. So he got me to buy the camera and threw in a roll of film, color film. So I went down to San Onofre, I made a little card up called Surf Days, and put the card with a grass hat on the beach and shot that with the blue water behind, and we got all my brother and his friends and shot pictures of ourselves surfing, and it came out fabulous. The first roll was just, you know, that dazzling Kodachrome color and perfect glassy days at the pier and clowning and having fun, and it was, I was hooked. This all started 1959, and of course all this went out to basically an audience of new surfers, fresh eyes. They'd never seen much of surfing before, so they were completely thrilled and very responsive to what we were doing. Stand-up ovations, and just that just led on to more films and bigger things. Well, during the year of '59, I put together a program called The Surfer, which was going to come out annually every year and accompany the films, because there was a great demand for still pictures. We printed 10,000 surfers. And I didn't know what was going to happen. So finally, I get it out of the printer, put it in my van, and drive to the first surf shop down in Hermosa Beach. I can't get into the surf shop. There's this, it looks like a riot or something. They're having problems at the surf shop. I don't know what's gone wrong. And I have to go around the block, and there's people all around it. And finally, I park a long ways away and carry this box in, and the guy said, "At last you're here. They're mobbing me for the surfer." So boom, they scooped all of those, and it was the same all over.
These days, John Severson is retired and is free to enjoy being an artist at his Maui studio and residence. I asked John, what is the one thing he'd like to be remembered for?
I think for having created a magazine that was a good job. It was clean, it represented the sport, it was artistic, it did a good job. It represented surfing well, and everybody was stoked. That's about all you can hope for in a work of art, I think, is to have some impact and hopefully positive, that there was a positive impact on the sport.
John Severson, a lifestyle pioneer who's influenced a generation of surfers all over the world.
The tropics is the most ultimate surf trip. There's great weather, gentle offshore breezes every day, and the waves are so perfect They're like right out of your most outrageous fantasy. The water's always warm. The scenery is totally epic. There's topless native girls just waiting to be plucked like nectarines from the vine. White sandy beaches. There's azure blue and emerald green waters. Yeah, there's a lot of sharks. And the reefs are nasty, especially that fire coral and that stuff that looks like elk antlers. And there are barracuda and stonefish that kill you in seconds, and sea snakes that bite hard, and jellyfish the size of the Astrodome, and giant squids. Oh man, I hate those dudes. And when it gets big, it barrels right across dry reef. And if you eat it, you're full-on hamburger. In a matter of seconds, you've got some terminal pus-dripping infection. Yuck! And you don't even want to get caught inside, because if your leash breaks, your board goes 15 miles in some radical rip and winds up getting sucked up some piranha and crocodile-infested river, right past the cannibal camp, where first they boil you just to get the sunscreen off, then they skewer you and barbecue you, and I hate it when that happens. And if you get past those dudes, they got mosquitoes the size of helicopters that are just pounding with malaria. If you want my advice, I wouldn't even surf there.
Maui's a good location because of access. Oahu is easily accessible, but yet you don't have to be there and live in the whole scene of it. The people here and the general attitude here seems that it's a little bit more laid back and a little bit more easier lifestyle to live day by day. So you have access. Not only that, but we have some of the better waves in the world when they do break. Waves such as Honolulu Bay and Malaya.
Pretty simple. That's what I wanted to get back to a simple life, and then managed to keep it fairly simple. I came back to surf and immediately started chasing the great waves, Malaya and Honolulu. I had some wonderful waves at both of those spots.
I think a favorite place in the whole island is got to be Malaya. Even though it breaks once or twice a summer, it's by far my favorite wave in the whole world, you know, when it does go off. Other than that, in the wintertime, it's places like Honolulu Bay, Big Lefts at Pakakalo, and a few other semi-secret spots on the Oahu coast.
Aloha and welcome to Maui, because we were in Kauai, but then I got an owie on my eye. Look at this place. An hour ago, I was down at the beach just baking in the sun. Now I'm freezing like I'm on some other planet. This is the kind of radical contrast you'll find in the surf scene on Maui, where spots can be flat as a lake for months at a time and suddenly go off when the swell direction's right. Then those picture postcard bays and points turn into grinding arenas of surf action. Maui is an exotic island of amazing contrast, tropical beauty, and incredible bays and beaches. For the visiting surfer, there's everything from luxurious beach resorts to remote reefs and points well off the beaten track. There's no shortage of surf spots on the island, but this isn't the consistent wave machine that is often associated with Hawaii. But while you're looking for waves, you'll find an amazing diversity of volcanic black sand beaches and pristine white sand formed from offshore coral and seashells. Then there are incredible valleys and waterfalls, and of course, Haleakala, the house of the sun, which has to be the closest thing to outer space that you can find here on Earth. Yeah, Maui has it all, but we came here looking for surf, especially the summer south swells that produce the rhythmic barrels of Malaya. Well, sometimes you just gotta take what you can get, because despite a great swell forecast, the direction was just 1 or 2 degrees wrong. And while Malaya was still flat, the local crew was making do with some playful waves at Lahaina Breakwall. So it was off to Hukipa on the island's north shore. This is the most consistent spot on Maui, and as usual, there were enough waves for a fun session. It was even overhead for this 9-year-old local grommet. While I was being run over by Justin Robeson, the swell suddenly started to build, completely unexpected from the north, and as the trade winds picked up, the wave sailors were in for a rare summertime treat. North swell and trade winds in summer on Maui? Oh boy, it is really unusual, but that's surfing on the outer islands, so the local surfers were quick to jam over to Honolulu Bay. For local surfer Mike Crow, this north swell was a great opportunity to put in some practice for the upcoming TDK Gotcha Pro on Oahu. And for everybody else, it was a stoking session of winter-type waves in the middle of summer. And what about the mythical Malaya, the fastest wave on Earth? Well, despite the forecast, it never did break while we were there. But hey, isn't chasing a dream what being a surfer is all about? One thing's for sure, we'll come back to Maui someday for its lush beauty, unique people, and the promise of legendary surf. adventure. We're hanging out in Hawaii for another week as we're off to the TDK Gotcha Pro from Sandy Beach, Oahu. For Surfer Magazine, I'm Sonny Miller. Until then, we're out of here.